Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. My name is Leanne McKelvey, and I'm very excited to be with all of you today and to spend this lunch hour diving into the topic of volunteerism, which is truly one of my greatest passions. So we're going to spend some time discussing how to assess your own interests, your skills, your time availability, and find a good volunteering match. In terms of logistics for today's webinar, my friend and fearless leader of the Friends of the Delaware County Women's Commission, our board president, Marianne Bellasorte, is partnering with me today, managing the technology. So there will be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation, but if you have questions and comments along the way, please raise your hand or send a message to Marianne and she will bring that to my attention and moderate the question and answer process. So everyone is muted right now, but please feel free to raise your hand or send a message in the chat bar, and I will address that along the way. Before we dive into our topic today, I just want to do a few introductions and tell you a bit more about myself. So to start, welcome to the first ever webinar, and hopefully first of many, hosted by the Friends of the Delaware County Women's Commission. To tell you a little bit about the Friends, we are a nonprofit 501c3 nonpartisan membership organization. Our goals are to empower women and girls to achieve their fullest potential by promoting their full participation in the economic, political, and social life of Delaware County. And we promote timely issues of interest to women and girls in Delaware County and sponsor educational and networking events for our community, of which you're participating in one right now. So I have been involved with the Friends as a board member for about 1.5 years, and I've been very moved by the work of the Friends of the Delaware County Women's Commission, advancing the well-being of women and children in our community. Specifically, I was attracted to the Friends by their Rising Star Scholarship program, providing scholarship dollars to current college students, as well as graduating high school seniors in our community. I encourage you to learn more about the Friends or become a member if you're not one currently. You can find out more information by visiting our website. The link is right there, friendsofdcwc.org. Move on to tell you a little bit about me and my history with volunteerism. My name is Leanne McKelvey, and I'm the Executive Director of CASA Youth Advocates. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving Delaware and Chester counties and located right here in Media. We recruit, train, and support volunteers from the community to become advocates for abused and neglected children. Personally, I'm a master's level social worker, and I was very driven to this field by a desire to impact children who have experienced trauma. But that having been said, what has kept me at CASA for a total of 15 years and counting is the volunteers. I find myself truly moved and in awe of the commitment of our approximately 90 volunteers who each dedicate 10 to 15 hours per month, not to mention their energy and their emotions to impact a child. I often tell people that even though we're a fundraising-based nonprofit organization trying to get by on the dollars that come through the door, we don't use volunteers because we don't have enough money to pay staff. I truly believe that there is something very special about leveraging the strengths and passion of community volunteers to make an impact on the lives of people in our community. So that's what drew me to CASA, that's what keeps me at CASA, and that's what brings me here today, trying to spread that passion for volunteerism throughout our community, helping individuals connect with organizations and causes that speak to them. And I think in the end, we all benefit from increased volunteerism in our community. Personally, I have a long history of volunteerism, starting as a very young child, due completely to my mom, who always impressed upon me and my brother the value in doing for others. You know how people say that sometimes your mother's voice stays in your head throughout your lifetime. Well, one of the messages from my mom that nags at me zealously is, let's jump right into our topic at hand today. So, new year, new you. Maybe you're one of those people like me who feels like somehow it's already January the 75th, but believe it or not, it is still January, and there's still time to get started on those New Year's resolutions. So if for you volunteering more is something that you've resolved to do in 2019, you've come to the right place today. I just want to reiterate, that I see such a beauty in volunteerism, that the beauty of that is bringing together good people and good causes that strengthens our community. But before we talk a little bit more about that, I just want to highlight that it can also strengthen you personally. So there are some research proven health benefits of volunteering, which I've listed here. So spending time volunteering can decrease the risk of depression. It can help people gain a sense of purpose. You can learn valuable skills. It helps to stay physically and mentally active, can reduce stress levels, helps you to meet others and develop new relationships, and it may actually help you to live longer. So these are all, as I said, research proven benefits of volunteering from a study of the Mayo Clinic. So I just want to note the impact that volunteering can have, not just on others, but can really change our own lives when we spend time giving. Just for fun, I interspersed some of my favorite quotes about volunteerism throughout our presentation today. This is one that really sticks with me. It really drives home the benefit of volunteering to the volunteer. Remember that the happiest people are not those getting more, but those giving more. So when we volunteer, we're not just giving to others, but we're also giving a gift to ourselves. And I think that's helpful to remember. Okay, so how to find a good match for your volunteering interests. Here you'll see a little graphic map on the side here of where we're headed in our discussion today. So we're going to talk about these 4 steps to finding a volunteer match, starting with knowing your why, identifying your passions, determining how you like to work, and assessing your time and availability. And before we get into details about each of those, I'll just highlight that volunteering doesn't have to take any special skills, extensive experiences, or a tremendous amount of time. It really is all about knowing what you have to put into the experience and what it is that you would like to get out of it. And being realistic in your expectations. So my motto that I always share with new CASA volunteers, and it might seem like a deterrent at first, but I always tell people, if you're here because you want to change the world, frankly, you should probably move on. But if you're here because you hope to change the world for one child, then you've come to the right place. So with realistic expectations, we really all can have a really huge impact. Another one of my very favorite quotes, I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And I will not let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do. So be realistic in your expectations, as we just talked about, but also don't underestimate yourself and don't prevent yourself from making some change just because you can't change the whole world. So getting into the knowing your why. Why do you want to volunteer? What are you hoping to get out of the experience? So people often identify wanting to give back as a key motivation for volunteering, and that's a great motivation. But honestly, the best forms of volunteerism should be mutually beneficial. It's okay to focus on the receiving as well as the giving. There's nothing wrong with getting personal benefit out of all altruistic actions. You're preparing to give away your most valuable resource, which is your time. So be clear about what you're hoping to get in return. So really identify and articulate your motivations as specifically as possible before even starting to look for an organization to give your time to. And you should be looking at both personal and professional motivations. So personally, what are you hoping to get out of the experience? Do you want to lend your skills and experiences to an organization in need? Do you want to learn something completely new? Do you want to practice a hobby in a new or different way or expanded way? Are you hoping to meet new people or just have fun? Professionally, do you want to learn and build your skills in order to advance in the workplace? Are you hoping to meet new professional contacts, to explore other career paths? volunteering can really be one of the very best ways to advance your career. You know, depending on where you end up, you can develop your brand, increase your visibility and credibility, grow your professional network, and gain valuable experience. We have a bunch of CASA volunteers who are law students who come to us to volunteer because, frankly, they get more courtroom experience than they would being a law clerk in most law firms. So we get a lot of people that are looking to kind of advance and get some of that professional experience that's going to help them. I'm going to share two other examples of how people approach this professional motivation differently. One of our very best CASA volunteers, Christine, is a mechanical engineer by education. And when she started looking for a volunteer opportunity quite a few years ago at this point, she wanted something completely different than her career, and even wanted to push herself to explore a possible career change into human services. So she really wanted as different as it could be, and ended up from her full-time job working as a mechanical engineer to volunteering with CASA as an advocate for children in foster care. So really looking for something that would push her and expand her knowledge base and her experience base. On the other hand, my husband, TJ, also happens to be an engineer and works for the Navy. When he was looking for a board opportunity a couple of years ago, he found what he was looking for in a nonprofit historical ship guild. So he really wanted to take his professional experience working on ships and engineering and managing paint and rust and all of the materials engineering work that he was doing on ships. And he wanted to be able to benefit this nonprofit organization with those skills. So both two very different approaches to how to apply professional skills to a volunteer experience, but definitely a step to work through and think through before you decide where you're going as a volunteer. The next step to trying to find a match for your volunteer interests is to identify your passions. So I start with thinking about, why now? Why are you looking to volunteer now? Did you recently, read an article about community gardens in Philadelphia, or talk to a friend who's serving as a mentor for a parenting teen? Another one of our great CASA volunteers, Gay, came to us because she had read an article in the Philadelphia Inquirer a number of years ago about a child who died in foster care as a result of abuse. And from the moment that she read that article, she was impacted, and she could not shake the need to do something. And it really stuck with her for months until she found CASA as the perfect outlet to get involved. So is there a cause that sticks with you like that too? Something that kind of nags at you, and every time you hear a news story or read an article about a particular cause, you're really drawn into that and interested and have a desire to get involved. You can also think about your hobbies and what you enjoy doing in your free time. So whether it's gardening or being with animals or reading, that leisure activity may very well lead you to a volunteer opportunity where you get to do more of it. I have a friend who is a very active Facebook and social media user, and I've known her for many years, and for all of those years, her posts have had two themes: social justice and her two cats. Literally every post, social justice issues or cats. So you can believe me that I was less than surprised when she decided to pursue her master's of social work and also become a volunteer at the SPCA on weekends. So she's really my favorite example of someone who truly let her interests and her hobbies lead her in both her career path and her volunteer experiences. Another thing to look at is if you have a favorite part of your job. So is there something that you really love about the work that you do, whether it's interacting with customers or spending time with kids or taking a pile of papers and creating an organized spreadsheet? We all have things that we enjoy and things that we dislike about our work. But if you think about what you love the most, is there an opportunity there to share with an organization as a volunteer? I guarantee you that not nonprofits have a need for people who enjoy interacting with people or being around kids and creating spreadsheets. All of those things could end up being a good fit for an organization. Also think about favorite subjects to research and read about. What do you find yourself drawn to? Do you find yourself sucked into articles and books about the environment or the arts or animals or politics or sports and recreation? I don't know about all of you, but I can very easily find myself 2 hours deep down the rabbit hole of Google on gender equity issues or child development, completely having lost track of time, focused so intensely on the subject at hand. So what are those things for you that really suck you in? And then finally, think about the very general question of, what are you good at? Know your own strengths and skills. Maybe it's not part of your job, or it's not something you consider to be a leisure activity, but you're really good at baking or organizing or budgeting. You could find one of those unique strengths to be a good fit for a volunteer opportunity. Okay, moving on to the next slide. I have another quote for you here, and I love this one. Volunteering is the ultimate exercise in democracy. You vote in elections once a year, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community that you want to live in. So it really gets to the idea that we're contributing to our community when we give of our time and energy by volunteering. And each of us really does have so much to give in so many different ways. Okay, next step to assessing a volunteer, you're assessing your skills for volunteer opportunities. Determine how you'd like to work. So just a few ideas to think through here as you're kind of getting a sense of what type of volunteer experience you'd like to have. So think about whether you prefer personally to work in teams or groups, or you want to do work independently. So if one of your motivations for volunteering is that you want to meet new people, you probably don't want a volunteering gig that's going to be you at a computer creating spreadsheets, right? So think about that and how, whether you prefer and your strength is in working as a group or working independently. Also think about whether you want to be really hands-on or you prefer an advisory role, maybe a board member of an organization. So do you want to work directly with people who are served by the organization, or do you think you would be better suited in a behind-the-scenes role where you're lending your skills and your expertise to the organization? Think about whether you'd like a concrete time-limited project or you're ready to make an ongoing commitment. So do you want something that's going to be time-limited where you're making a commitment of a certain number of hours for a certain number of days or weeks? Or do you want to find an organization right now where you can make a long-term impact and commitment? Think about whether you want office work or you want something that's a little bit more structured or outdoors. So if you currently work in an office space and you're really craving the opportunity to get your hands dirty and take on an active role, then that's going to inform your volunteer experience decisions also. And then is volunteering something that you're looking to do on your own? Or would you really like to find an experience that you can partner with a friend or your spouse or partner, or even do as a family? There are a lot of opportunities out there where you can expose kids to opportunities to give back to the community, which is really so important. As I mentioned, it was instilled in me at a very young age by my mom that we weren't living in a bubble and we needed to do what we could to give back and impact other people in our community. And there are opportunities to do that with children and families. And then finally, there are virtual options out there for volunteering. So if you have time on your hands, but not necessarily the ability to get to an organization's office on a regular weekly basis, there may be opportunities for you to do work virtually. So some organizations need help with managing their social media or graphic design or collecting backpacks for a drive, making phone calls. things that can be done from your home or anywhere rather than on site. So all things to kind of think about what your preferences are and how you like to work. And then finally, it's important to assess your time and availability. Keeping a volunteer commitment is critical to the agency that you'll be working with. So make sure you've thought about what it is that you have to give in terms of your time and availability up front. And be realistic. Be realistic about the total amount of time you have to give, when you have to give it, and where you're able to work. And I'll just note that this applies whether you're a working professional, a student, a parent or caregiver, or a retiree. Frankly, most of the retirees that I know are the busiest people I've ever met in my entire life. So don't assume that because someone's retired that they have tons of time on their hands, or someone is working full-time and has kids that they have none. Be realistic about exactly what it is that you have to give. So don't overestimate your time availability, but also don't underestimate it. I don't know if you've heard the saying that if you need something done, to give it to a busy person. According to research, women consistently volunteer at higher rates than men at all stages of our lives. And God knows we're very busy people. So I don't know too many women in my life who are sitting around twiddling our thumbs and looking for something to do with our time. We carve out the time for the people and the things that are important to us, right? So even if you only have a couple of hours a month to volunteer, you can do something meaningful. Okay, so at this point, you're probably asking, okay, now how do I find this magical organization? I have a sense of why I'm looking to volunteer, my passions, my work style, and my time and availability. Now, where do I go? So obviously, it's impossill for me in this venue to spout off all of the hundreds and thousands of ways and places that you might be able to volunteer. But I have some favorite go-tos to get you started. My favorite of which is volunteermatch.org. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but it's a terrific website. You go in, you put in your zip code, you can check boxes for your areas of interest, and you get a list of postings from organizations who are looking for volunteers. As of yesterday, I went in, I put in media zip code, and I found 1,176 volunteer opportunities near me. Of course, from there, you can narrow it down by interest area, but it demonstrates exactly how much is out there in our community. Just as a point of reference, when I entered environment as my interest area, I still got 71 hits for volunteer opportunities in the media area. United Way also has a similar search function if you visit their website, unitedway.org, where you can also search by zip code. While you'll find a slightly smaller pool of volunteer opportunities here, what's nice about United Way is that the list is curated to some extent by their involvement with the various organizations that are advertising for volunteers. And if you enter through United Way, you're also in a broader network of United Way volunteers who are working with organizations across the country. So as I said, you can search here by zip code, and you can also narrow it down by interest area, by skill set, and by activity type. The next one on the list is idealist.org. If you're not familiar with Idealist, their mission is to make the world a better place by connecting idealists who want to make changes in the world to opportunities for collaboration and action with community organizations. So they're largely a job posting portal, but they also have a section of their website for volunteer opportunities. And I love their search bar in their volunteer section of their website, which is labeled "Find the perfect opportunity to change the world." You type in your search terms and see what comes up. So while again, there's going to be a smaller pool of opportunities than say volunteermatch.org, what you'll find on Idealist is organizations in your community who are really active in trying to improve the community for people who live there. So you'll find everything from board opportunities to community organizing, advocacy opportunities, and really so much more. So just to give you an idea, here's a sample of what I found there yesterday in our area. Helping a yoga studio to create a composting system. Being a part of an invasive plant SWAT team that goes into local parks and removes invasive plants from trails. Manning a web-based crisis chat line to provide emotional support to bullied teens and youth. Providing dog walking, litter box maintenance, and vet transportation to help aging citizens keep their pets with them. And being an apprentice on a biodynamic farm in Chester County. So it's definitely where I think you can find the coolest opportunities available there. Catch a Fire is the next one on our list. And it's a really cool organization that helps to bring together nonprofit organizations and professional volunteers who donate their time to a project. So if you go to their website, nonprofits post their projects for you to peruse. So there are organizations that are in need of photography, video editing, an employee performance evaluation process, a marketing strategy, graphic design for a brochure, a website overhaul, or foundation grant research. So if you have skill sets in communication, design, IT, HR, research, photography, videography, and on, you can connect with an organization through Catch a Fire that's in need of your specific skills for a project. It's really a great organization that we've used at CASA several times for concrete projects that we were in need of. Finally, I'm talking about this last, but it probably should be your very first step, and that's to use your connections. So think about the organizations that you might already be connected to. Have you donated recently to any local organizations? Have you attended special events for charitable organizations in our community? Where do your friends work or volunteer or support? So are there organizations in your sphere already that might benefit from your time and skills? And then, of course, before we move to the next slide, I couldn't conduct this webinar for the Friends of the Delaware County Women's Commission with Ginsburg. So for organizational justice, you will get satisfaction out of doing something to give back to the community that you never get in any other way. So wherever you end up, whatever cause speaks to you, whatever organization connects with you, once you find that match, I can vouch for the fact that it really is a true level of personal satisfaction that I haven't gotten from anything else in my life. It's really unique. Okay. So you've done all of the work of assessing yourself, searching for an organization, and you think you found a good match. So how do you know if this organization is really maybe on web is being protected. Open what you're saying. Also, look up your organization's mission statement and make sure that it aligns with your personal values. Another thing you can do is look up financial statements. So there's a website called GuideStar that allows you to look up financial data on nonprofits, including their IRS filings, which are called 990s. So you can check out the organization's budget, as well as gain some historical information about whether or not the organization is growing or shrinking and how financially healthy and stable they are. Also ask around about the organization's reputation. So do you know people who may have had prior contact with them or individuals who are affiliated with them? See if you can get some inside scoop. And then I would really encourage you to ask questions and to take the approach of interviewing the organization. So you're about to donate your most valuable possession, your time. You're allowed to ask a lot of questions. but also expect them to interview you. Many organizations will ask you to fill out an application, come in for an interview, complete references, legally required background checks in some cases, as well as participate in training. While all of that may sound cumbersome to become a volunteer, it also means that those organizations take their commitment to their volunteers seriously too. Ultimately, you want an organization that's going to be as committed to you as you are to them. And that may mean some more scrutiny up front on both sides. So expect that. And then always keep in mind that the best matches are ones where supply and demand are balanced. So be clear about what you have to give in terms of your skills and time with the organization, and then make sure that you're clear about what the needs of the organization are and how you fit into that. I have another quote for you next. Volunteers don't get paid, not because they're worthless, but because they're priceless. So I include this one very regularly in the thank you notes to CASA volunteers that I write, because I think it really highlights the fact that, you know, we're not using volunteers as an organization because we can't pay people to become staff. We're using volunteers because volunteers bring something very special and truly priceless to the table. Okay, so now you're a volunteer. Let's say you've gone through all of the work to assess yourself and you've researched organizations and you think that you've found the perfect volunteer opportunity. So you're good, right? You get started and you hit the ground running. So hopefully the answer is yes, you've found a good partnership that can last you for a while. But I would encourage you to keep monitoring the experience that you have as a volunteer. Since you've gone through the work of identifying your personal and professional motivations and assessing your time availability, make sure you check in with yourself regularly to make sure that the volunteer experience is continuing to line up with your expectations. Over time, you'll know you have a good match. If you feel that the organization values you, you feel that you're making a difference in the community, and that your own life is being enhanced or impacted. And then I would encourage you that if at any point you find that you've overcommitted, clear communication is key. Work together with the organization to come up with a solution. Most organizations, in my experience, are more than willing to make changes or compromises to keep a good volunteer. You know, I'm the director of a volunteer-based organization. I can't approach that with expectations as if all of those volunteers are full-time staff here. You know, I understand that volunteers come to the table with caring for children or elderly parents with full-time jobs, with maybe sometimes multiple jobs, with health issues, with other commitments. You know, organizations who utilize volunteers regularly get that. So have those open conversations as things come up with the organization. You may find that they're very open to working with you and trying to make it work. A few other things that you can do for the organization. Sorry, Marianne, if you can back up to that slide one more time. Thank you. A couple of other things that you can do for your organization is think about ways that you can be an ambassador in the community for the organization that you're volunteering for. One of the most powerful things that you may be able to do for the organization you're working with is to talk about them in the community. You know, most of us don't have huge budgets for marketing. We rely very heavily on word of mouth communication. So spreading the word about the good work that you see at the organization can really be a truly helpful way to assist them and advance the organization in the work that they're doing. And then ask what else you can do. So if you've really found a good fit in an organization and you're passionate about what they do and you feel like you're making a difference, there may be other ways that you can help that may not require much more of your time. So I know at CASA, we often tell people that one of the biggest ways that they can help us for the lowest input is to share our social media posts. You know, or people can bring one friend out to a CASA event to introduce them to the organization. Or, you know, when they're stopping into the office, bring in a notebook or a box of pencils to help make sure that our kids have school supplies. Or maybe you know somebody with professional skills that could help the organization, a graphic designer who could help with marketing materials or something like that. You never know until you ask, but if you ask an organization what their other needs are, you may find that there's ways that you can continue to assist them that really don't increase the commitment that you've made to the organization. And then a small note at the end is to not forget about the tax break. So it's a really small thing and not usually what attracts us to volunteering, but there are some financial breaks that can help when there's travel involved in a volunteer experience. You can deduct out-of-pocket costs for volunteer efforts, or there is a flat deduction of 14 cents per mile driven for your volunteer experience. So I'm certainly not an expert in this area. I would refer everyone to the IRS publication 526 on charitable contributions for details about that. Okay, and then moving on to our last quote, how to end with Dr. Seuss. Unless somebody like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So hopefully I've inspired you a little bit today to take action and really be a part of making things better out there in our community. And if I haven't inspired you, hopefully Dr. Seuss has a little bit. But again, I really thank everybody for spending this time talking about volunteerism and diving into some of this stuff for me. And now we certainly have time for questions if anybody has any questions or comments that you'd like to make. Please raise your hand or send a message and Mary Ann will unmute people one at a time. Does anybody have any questions or anything that you'd like to share? We will send this PowerPoint presentation out to anyone who's interested, who signed up for today. And I'm happy to take questions individually if you have them after today's webinar. So I think Mary Ann is going to unmute everyone here. So if you have a question, you can just ask it. Everyone should be unmuted at this point. Okay, so I'm not seeing anybody with questions right now and don't hear from anybody. So if that's it, I just want to thank people for spending this time with us today. Thank you for your time and attention. We will send out the PowerPoint presentation. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me personally. Thank you very much.